When India lost the previous match, you, Ayaz, had said that you were confident that eventually India would win the series, and lo and behold, they've done it with one match to go. But before we get into the match, let me take a moment to acknowledge that this is episode number 100 of this show, and it's been a great pleasure working with veterans such as yourself, Ayaz.
Congratulations on the century partnership, Anirudh.
Yeah. So let's get into the controversy bit of yesterday's match. So Harshit Rana was brought in as a concussion substitute for Shivam Dube, who got hit on the head all towards the later part of the innings. Now, England protested that this was not a like-for-like replacement. I mean, I don't think they officially protested, but Josh Butler brought it up in the post-match press conference. But this is not the first time this has happened. I remember a couple of years ago where in Australia, Yuzvendra Chahal was brought in as a substitute for Ravindra Jadeja, and Chahal eventually became man of the match in that. And Harshit Rana took 3 wickets to help India win the series. Now, India might have been tried to be a bit clever with this substitution, but eventually, ultimately, the decision is of the match referee, Javagal Srinath, in this case. So, what did you make of this whole drama?
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought India did extremely well to come back both times with ball and with bat, or with bat and ball, as you might want to see it. Because in both situations, they were in danger of losing this match. They came back really well, through their spin bowlers, and before that, through Pandya and Dube with the bat. But yes, something like this kind of mars the sweet flavor of victory. And it's not about India. I think it's the gray area and the rule itself. I mean, you can always say that one is not a like for like replacement with the other. You mentioned about Chahal and Ravindra Jadeja. Now one bowls right arm leg spin, the other bowls left arm spin. So is that like for like or not? You could say yes, they are like for like because both bowls spin. In this case, is Shivam Dube and Harshit Rana, is it a like for like? Or by linear logic, it is not. But today, in today's day and age, everybody, especially in T20, every bowler is also kind of a batsman because they go out there and make a few runs. So you can argue that Shivam Dube is an all-rounder, so is Harshit Rana to an extent. But yes, it does take away something from the victory in the match. But I think overall, what India have proved through this series so far, we've got one more match remaining in the 4 matches played, that they were the more resilient team, they were the more resourceful team. When it came to the crux, they produced the match winners. They had the men to turn the match around. So overall, I think you have to say that India was a far better team. We've said this earlier, Anirudh, that on current form, when you look at the whole universe of T20 teams which are playing international cricket, India is clearly the best. Starting from the time I think when they won the T20 World Cup, maybe a little before that, but since then they've kind of reiterated this prowess every now and then.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Shivam Dube and how he is a good example of this new era of Indian T20 cricket, because perhaps in earlier Indian teams, a batter with some obvious weaknesses like Dube has against fast short bowling might not have been persisted with, but he was brought into this team with this one role, which was to take on Adil Rashid, who had destroyed India in the previous match, and he did so beautifully. I think he made some 25 runs in 11 balls against Adil Rashid, which was a major difference in the game. So, do you think this is a trend that will continue?
Yes, and I think this was targeted batting, so to speak. Shivam Dube going after Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid was the biggest threat, the most potent threat in the English attack, and in the previous couple of matches he had bowled superbly. So this was whoever won this battle, in a sense, won the match for their team. So Shivam Dube making a half century, Hardik Pandya making a half century, which I thought was very important, coming at the position that he did. After Mahendra Singh Dhoni, he was touted as the big finisher who will take the match deep or the batting deep and then win matches for you with his big strokes. He hadn't done much in this series, but he did it in this match, which mattered to win the series. So you had two people who were, in a sense, out of form coming good. But of course, you have to also consider, Sanju Samson, we've talked about him. He's not had a good series at all. And neither actually has Surya Kumar Yadav as a batsman. And, as a captain, yes, he's got a series win to show for himself. But as a batsman, he was completely at, you know, just couldn't put a foot right. So uh, overall, I think on balance, a majority of the Indian players who were played in the series, barring Chami, had one match. We can't pass judgment one way or the other. It was important that he got onto the field, but there have been a few failures, but there have been far more successes. So in that sense, yes, the policies, selection policies, playing order, playing 11 decisions have all paid off.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about Samson, which we do quite a lot on the show. So it seemed that he had cemented his place in the side with those couple of hundreds against South Africa and earlier. But do you think these past few innings where he's been getting out to the same sort of delivery that puts him back, or do you think the team management says that look, this is what you get with Sanju, and on his day he wins you the game, rather than getting in someone who strike rate is around 120?
So a couple of things. These are my thoughts. I mean, look, there's nobody who can take his or his place for granted because there's so much competition. And T20, as we know, by nature is very topsy turvy. You've got somebody who's got a sequence of 3, 4 good scores, and then you might have the same player playing and not getting scores for the next 5, 6 innings. And there's somebody else or 2 or 3 players ready to take that position. So in that sense, Sanju, you can't write him off. But yes, the longer you take to hit a rich vein of form, which keeps you top of mind of the captain, the chief coach, the selectors, then you're always under threat from being dislodged from your position in the team. I mean, there are the likes of Yashasvi Jaiswal who could well stake a claim in the T20 team also. You've got Tilak Verma who's been playing really well. Remember, he also had a first one golden duck in this series. So these things can happen. But I think Sanju Samson needs to kind of maybe take a step back, not from the field, but in his own kind of, and do some little introspection as to what is going wrong. Maybe consult some people he trusts, coaches or mentors or whoever, because ultimately he's been around for 7, 8, 9 years, playing. So you need by now to have really entrenched yourself in the team. I don't think he's going to be cast aside easily because he's a very high quality batsman and he's, you know, for the T20 mold, he's like, kind of made to measure, so to speak. So it's not easy to dislodge him or sideline him, but he needs to start making those important runs, play those important knocks, start winning matches for India.
Yeah, and speaking of runs, we had the big guns returning to Ranji Trophy, the biggest one being Virat Kohli, causing all sorts of chaos around the Arun Jaitley Stadium. But his stay at the crease was around, I think, 20-25 minutes, and he got out. He was bowled for 6, and bit of a dud that. But it's not only him. I think of all the big guns that went back, including your Rohit Sharmas and your Pants and your Gills, none of them actually had any impact apart from Jadeja, who's been a mainstay for his team and he took a lot of wickets. So, what did you think of this whole Ranji experiment?
Look, I mean, apart from Jadeja, there was Shubman Gill who got a decent score in one of the matches or in the second innings. So in that sense, yes, it's been of value for him because he was also struggling on the tour of Australia. So here's my point of view. I mean, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma were the two big guns who deigned to play, who agreed to play in these in these Ranji matches. There was a lot of build up, a lot of brouhaha and hullabaloo. Rohit Sharma couldn't do much in the match against J&K. So against Delhi playing Railways, neither could Virat Kohli against weaker opposition even in domestic cricket. So that is in a way it's significant. But also look at it the other way. The presence of these stars. I mean, you had 22,000 people coming to watch Virat Kohli. That's a bigger test. You won't get test match crowds like this in any other country. And you had this this kind of spectatorship coming in to watch Virat Kohli. Just the fact of him being there. I had gone for the match at Mumbai when J&K played Mumbai, and there were not 22,000 people, there were 6,000 people coming to watch Rohit Sharma. So you generate that interest. That's one part. The other is the opposition gets inspired to perform better when you see these big guns. Every bowler in J&K wanted not just to play against Rohit, but get his wicket. So too, I would imagine for Railways against Delhi, they wanted to get Virat out. And that's an incentive for the Ranji players to get better. When you play against these opponents and you get their wicket, it inspires you to bigger deeds. And then the third part, of course, is for these guys themselves, as I've said earlier, it's important for them to find their own rhythm if they are struggling. These are the matches you must do. But I have to add one rider here. It can't be a one-off. We've had this season because of the setbacks against New Zealand and Australia in the Test series, and there was so much of outrage that we must have these guys playing domestic cricket. So they played. Now what happens next season? So
Yeah.
is that going to be only after a setback or a defeat? I don't think that should be the case. I think the BCCI needs to set up a policy, a certain number of minimum matches that should be played red ball first class cricket by all players, irrespective of whether they are stars or not. Maybe three. I'm just giving an arbitrary number, unless of course there's injury or illness or some international engagement which they can't come. But if you make sure that they participate for 3 matches in a season, you can imagine how rich domestic cricket will be in terms of the skill quotient, the talent quotient, and obviously, the fact of the big guns competing against each other will draw in a lot more spectators.
Yeah, so we can only wait and watch. And the fifth T20I, England, coming up in a few days, and we'll come back to you right after that. So that's it for this episode of Sportsroom. We'll see you next time.
I'll just reiterate again. Congratulations on the century partnership that we've had, and we have to just take fresh guard and go on from here.